Running backs are cool again. Saquon Barkley literally carried the Eagles to a Super Bowl win. He won Offensive Player of the Year, he did a reverse hurdle, and now he's on the front cover of the new Madden game. Derrick Henry is drinking from whatever fountain of youth Tom Brady was drinking from, because he is literally 31 years old and is still running over dudes. And we have a crop of young, very exciting running backs, led by the likes of Jahmyr, Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, and now Ashton Jeanty, and even more. But the question is, who are the best? Well, I'm going to rank the top 65 running backs in the NFL and put them into tiers, which you can see on the screen now. And before I explain what those tiers mean, make sure you subscribe right now for more NFL offseason content. Most of you watching are not subscribed, and I need you to be, and you need to be as well. So let me explain what these tiers are. First, we have the elite bell cow tier. These are the best of the best, the elite running backs in the NFL, running backs who can take over a game single-handedly and win the team their game, and win the team the game by putting them on their backs. They can comfortably be given the majority of the rushing attempts, and should be given the majority of the rushing attempts because they are that good. Next, we have the elite role player. These are guys who are still elite, but because of how the modern NFL approaches running backs, they might not be a bell cow like the old school way of kind of approaching the running back position was. They might be given limited touches in a game, but nevertheless are still elite with those touches. They might not have the frame potentially to be a bell cow, but they're still dynamic offensive weapons. Then we have high-end RB1. These guys aren't elite, but they are still great running backs who will be the team's go-to running back in any given situation. Then we have serviceable, the next step down. These are okay to good running backs, not looking to maybe upgrade them immediately, but would be looking to do so in the next year or two. Then we have high-end RB2. These are guys who aren't going to be your starting running back, but are going to give you some really good high-end play. And then we have the rotational RB3, someone that's better in a rotational backfield, might be good at one specific role, maybe goal line, or maybe they have a bit of speed, which might lend them to going to being played on the field a few times. But fundamentally, they're better suited to an RB3 spot. And as you can see below, I have all of these running backs that I'm going to rank, and we are going to start with a tricky one in Christian McCaffrey. And he, in 2023, was the best running back in the NFL, no questions asked. He had 1,727 rush yards. That's 500 more rush yards than who was in second place at the time. 5.2 yards per attempt, that was third. 1,110 yards after contact, that was first in the NFL. 75 missed tackles, that was first in the NFL. He also had 716 receiving yards and had 22 total touchdowns. He was, at that point in 2023, arguably the single most dominant player in the NFL, I would argue, regardless of position. He is so dynamic as a rusher, and I would argue that in his prime, there is no better receiving threat from the running back position than Christian McCaffrey either. He's so explosive whenever he touches the ball, whether that is as a running back or as a receiver. He can grind out the hard yards. He can make people miss with his speed and with his elusiveness. His contact balance is absolutely top-notch. He can take hits and just keep running, and he's elite. He was elite and has been elite throughout his career. And really since that rookie season, what draws McCaffrey back though, and why it's a hard one to start, isn't just because he's had injuries throughout his career, but because of the most recent injury, which is really concerning me, I'm not going to lie. He missed most of 2024 due to two really significant injuries. The first was bilateral Achilles tendonitis, and then a PCL injury. And in that gap in between injuries, coming off the bilateral Achilles tendonitis, for which he went to Germany to, by the way, had to get out of the US to get some treatment on that, he did not look the same. He only hit a top speed of 17.4 miles per hour. You could see when you were watching, he didn't quite have that same juice, that same burst, that same explosiveness. And previously, before his injuries, he was hitting 20 miles an hour comfortably every game. He clearly had lost the step. Now, there's been a whole offseason, or there will be a whole offseason between then and now. I'm no doctor. I can't give a prognosis on his injuries. I'm going to try and do that. But the injury list for Christian McCaffrey is now stacking up, and he is at a point in his career where bouncing back fully from very serious injuries, which caused him to miss essentially a whole season, isn't that easy anymore, and it is not a given. It is far from a given. I do have my doubts about Christian McCaffrey this year, if he can reach the highs he reached in 2023 and 2021, 2022-ish, when he's not injured, basically. So I'm kind of got to plant my flag here a little bit out the gate with Christian McCaffrey, a running back who I love. When he was drafted to the Panthers, one of the players that was responsible for getting me to love the game when he was drafted in 2017, I think, to the Panthers. He has been elite, and if he's healthy, he is elite, right? He's an elite bell count, no doubt about it. But I'm just worried he's lost a step. I'm going to keep him at the back end of elite for now. Obviously, when more running backs get in, it will be fuller. But I think I would only feel comfortable putting him at the back of this tier just because of those injuries. I would love to be proven wrong, and I really hope I am, but I do have my doubts, so it's going to stay there. Now, James Conner. He is the unsung hero of the Cardinals offense. When he went down versus the Panthers in Week 16 and that game went to overtime, they couldn't move the ball without him, really. Like, he really is the lifeblood of that offense. They are very much an offense which runs primarily through James Conner on the ground, get the ball moving along the ground, and then you can have play actions from there. You can have Kyler Murray kind of trying to hit those deep shots. Whatever it might be, either way you look at it, James Conner is the building block at which that offense starts. And you can kind of see why. Like, he has really come into his own these last 2 years. He's had back-to-back 1,000-yard rushing seasons. He is a downhill, hard-nosed, smash-mouth runner. He's great at running through contact, fighting for hard yards. He's not dynamic, right? He's not going to cut anyone out of their shoes. He's not going to, like, evaporate over to some different gaps in the blink of an eye like some of these running backs later on this list. But he just is really good at what he does, fundamentally. He was 5th in missed tackles force this year at 53. He was 4th in runs of 10-plus yards. He is a very good running back. I don't think he is... Now, the question is he an elite role player? Because he's not... Or is he a high-end RB1? I feel like putting Conner in high-end RB1 is generous. Putting him in elite role player, is generous. And leaving him in high-end RB1 is doing him a disservice. It's hard. It's hard. I think James Conner is really good. Is he elite? No, I don't think so. So I think I'm going to leave him at the top end of this high-end RB1, I think. Seems fair to me. Now, Jaden Blue is a Cowboys rookie drafted in the 5th round, and I'm really quite hopeful about what his season could bring. He has speed and lots of it and a lot of dynamism, and is going to bring that to a backfield which really has been lacking that for quite some time now in Dallas. He has legit 4.3 speed. He's fantastic out of the backfield on Texas routes, specifically kind of when you cut outside the offensive line and cut back in. And he's just absolutely deadly on those. He's got juice to make people miss. He did have, though, a big fumbling problem in college. He had, 5 fumbles from 135 attempts. That is way too much. In the NFL, if you fumble the ball, you're not going to see the field. It's as simple as that. You cannot cough the ball up like that. And Jaden Blue, surprised he declared. I thought he would stay at Texas and kind of build on his skill set. He ended up declaring. He still got drafted. He's quite raw, not a lot of tread on the tires. He's quite a young and exciting player, even though he's coming out of college. We still haven't really seen that much of him. He's quite inexperienced. But I love the physical tools. I love the speed. And Javonte Williams will be the pseudo starter. I'll talk about him when we get to him. But I can see Jaden Blue carving out a decent role for himself in this offense. And I think he's going to show that I think he's got a ceiling of even a high-end RB1 with that speed, genuinely, and his ability to make people miss. But for now, let's put him in as a serviceable RB1. I think we're going to see that from him in this year, and he can build on that afterwards. Tyler Algier is the perfect high-end RB2, I would say. 4th in yards after contact per attempt at 3.16, 11th in yards per attempt at 4.7. He is very effective, very efficient, offers a slightly different skill set to Bijan, obviously who's a completely different level in terms of talent and ability. But Tyler Algier is more of that kind of goal line, short yardage back, which really does save Bijan from those bigger, harder hits, which is what you want to keep him healthy. So he is the perfect Robin to Bijan's Batman. I'm going to put him in the high-end RB2. I think he's really good. But he is clearly an RB2. Justice Hill is the most slept-on running back in the league, potentially. He has a very tiny role in the Ravens offense, which uses Derrick Henry massively, right? And understandably so. They're a team that want to run the ball with Derrick Henry. I'll talk about that when I get to him. They have fullbacks on the field. They've got limited wide receivers. They've got Lamar Jackson. So Justice Hill has a small role that he can play, but he plays that role honestly really, really well. He only had 59 rushing attempts last year, but averaged 4.9 yards per carry. He's a really great receiving threat. On wheel routes specifically, he had 2 massive gains from that last season, which was great. It might not seem like a lot, just kind of referencing 2 wheel routes, but when you get as limited opportunities as Justice Hill does, turning 2 of those plays into massive gains is really important. He had 403 receiving yards last year from only 48 receptions. That's 8.4 yards per catch. He is incredibly efficient. He's got a really unique role as a primarily receiving threat, kind of RB2. And again, limited snaps. There's not much that he can do with that. But I think he is a high-end RB2. So we'll put him behind Tyler Algier. Chuba Hubbard last year showed that he could be an RB1. He had 1,100 yards, 10 touchdowns, 800 yards after contact. I think for me, Hubbard is someone that has a higher floor but a lower ceiling, if that makes sense, as a RB1. He will get you the yards you need and will get you maybe a few extra here and there as well. But he isn't really going to give you much more than that. I think we kind of know what we're getting from Chuba Hubbard, and I think really his highs are what we saw of last season, which, don't get me wrong, still a very good running back and is well worth being your starting running back. But I think he's just a serviceable RB1 is what I would say for Chuba Hubbard. I'm not going to have him ahead of Jaden Blue. I would rather have Chuba Hubbard right now, but that's where I'm going to put him. James Cook. It is very rare for a 199 pounds, which is 14th percentile weight running back, to be used and to be as effective as James Cook is. I think he's much greater than the sum of his parts, physically at least. He had 1,281 rush yards last year, 4.9 yards per attempt, 19 touchdowns, which was the most in the NFL. This guy has a real nose for the end zone. Is there a degree of that being the offensive system that is run in Buffalo? And obviously, when you get into the red zone, you've got to watch out for Josh Allen as a rushing threat. Of course, that helps him. But nevertheless, James Cook makes the most of that. And obviously, with all of these running backs, there is a degree of the scheme and the system helping them. They're running backs. That is the nature of the position. So I'm not going to hold that massively against any of these guys. For some, it might be more important to mention than others. And for James Cook, I think it is worth mentioning that, yeah, he has a lot of production. But I think it's also fair to say that quite a lot of that production, at least touchdown-wise, is a result of the scheme, is a result of Josh Allen. But nevertheless, he is great at using his weight. He runs with a really noticeable forward lean. It's like James Cook is always on the edge of kind of tripping up over his own feet. And that helps him kind of get parallel to the ground. And that helps a lighter running back kind of churn through contact and pick up those extra yards when they are tackled. And it helps him really play above his weight. He's got great ball security as well. Only 1 fumble last year, which I think from that 1 fumble, if I'm counting it right, he then turned that, picked the ball back up and turned it into a 50-yard gain. So 1 fumble, but he recovered it himself. And he's very reliable as both a pass catcher, and as a rusher on the ground. And I think in the modern NFL, quote unquote, whatever that might mean, well, for running backs, I'll tell you what it means. It means that basically you want your running back to be a receiving threat as well, with the kind of rise of the passing game. And I think that's where James Cook excels, is that he can also offer you quite a lot as a pass catcher. And he's a really good complement to Josh Allen as a rusher. James Cook is lighter, but when you've got a quarterback that's built like a brick house in Josh Allen, then you can kind of afford to have a James Cook in your backfield. So it works really well. It's a symbiotic relationship with James Cook and the Bills. Don't get me wrong. He is what they need and they are what he needs. So it works really well. And he's much better of a player than I thought he was ever going to be coming out of Georgia. Is he, though, a high-end RB1? I don't think so. I think he's serviceable, which might be a bit harsh for James Cook. No, I think James Cook is a high-end RB1. I think he is. But I have him over James Conner. Not for James Conner's skill set, no. But no, I think James Cook is definitely a high-end RB1. They are, by the way, going to be ranked within the tiers. So Jaden Blue, for example, after Chuba Hubbard, means that I would rather have Chuba Hubbard than Jaden Blue. Brashard Smith, the Chiefs' new rookie running back. He's going to be primarily a receiving threat from the backfield, a complement to Isaiah Pacheco, who we'll talk about later, who very much isn't a receiving threat for the most part. Brashard Smith is a former wide receiver convert. He's going to be very effective on third down as a speedy receiving threat. He does lack the play strength and lack the kind of contact balance that you look for from a running back, which is understandable considering he's a convert from wide receiver. It's a different build to play running back, and really you get hit in different ways than when you play wide receiver. So that's understandable. Will he learn that to a degree? Maybe, but really kind of compared to other running backs, compared to his peers on this list, it is definitely noticeably not there, really. So he is inevitably going to be effective on the Chiefs' offense because of just how good they are as an offense, because of Patrick Mahomes. But I think he's only going to be I'm not going to be sold on him, to be frankly, or when I come to Isaiah Pacheco. And really, I think he's just going to be kind of more of a rotational back than a high-end RB2 for now, at least. But the big one, Ashton Jeanty, the most dominant running back season, well, one of the most dominant running back seasons we've ever seen in college football history. He had 2,959 rush yards. That led the nation. 6.9 yards per attempt. Led the nation. 29 touchdowns. 152 missed tackles forced. Led the nation and broke PFF records. And then get this, it doesn't end there. 1,970 yards after contact, which not just led the nation and broke PFF records, but also if we took Ashton Jeanty's pure yards after contact stats and put them in with everyone else's normal rushing stats, it would be Ashton Jeanty in total yards first, then it'd be Ashton Jeanty purely yards after contact, and then it'd be whoever is in third, which I believe is Cam Skattebo at the end of the season. That's how good Ashton Jeanty was. Ashton Jeanty after contact was the second best running back in the nation. His contact balance is off the charts. His ability to create something out of nothing is what we look for when we try and scout elite running back prospects, like as of someone like why have I just forgotten his name? As of someone like Bijan Robinson, sorry. And his just elite elusiveness means that he's able to turn a potential 5-yard gain into a house call from anywhere on the field. And you can see that in some of the plays that he has when he's pinballing off tacklers, bouncing it outside, the balance, the contact balance, the vision. It's genuinely off the charts. He is a complete 3-down back, despite being a little bit shorter at 5'9". And I think he will also offer more in the passing game than he was able to in BYU. I think they use him as a rusher primarily. I think he's got a lot more to give as a receiving threat than he was able to show in college, for what it's worth. And under Chip Kelly as the offensive coordinator now in Las Vegas, they're going to run this guy. When in his time in the NFL, he was giving LaShawn McCoy like 320 carries in a season. I think they're going to give Ashton Jeanty a minimum of 300 carries, and with that is going to come insane production. I think Ashton Jeanty is going to show that he is going to be an elite bell cow. And if I'm going into next season, I would rather have Ashton Jeanty over Christian McCaffrey. Is there projection there? Absolutely there is. But that's kind of the whole point, is that we're projecting this for 2025. Jonathan Taylor. This might upset some people. I think he can be a great running back and has shown that he can be that in kind of flashes, or more than flashes, sustained periods, but not really for entire seasons, I would argue, or at least for back-to-back seasons. He's just not that consistent at a position which I think you have to be consistent at. Right? And I'll talk about this for a few different prospects, but generally speaking, running back, obviously in a blowout game where you're down 4 scores, you're not going to be running the ball. That's understandable. But for the most part, you should kind of be producing the same way and putting up similar performances at the running back position, because it is not easy. I'm not trying to diminish the running back position like that. It isn't easy. None of the positions are. But we do see a really strong transition from college to the NFL with regards to running backs, almost more so than any other position, because the position is very similar. The kind of core principles of it never really change from at least college to the NFL, obviously with a few exceptions. And I think with Taylor, just that inconsistency really throws me off. And considering that he has also been running behind one of the better and more consistent offensive lines over the last few years, it doesn't leave a great taste in my mouth. This year, for example, he was 40th in yards after the contact per attempt at 2.68 yards. That's less than Tyrone Tracy, who is also a running back wide receiver convert. He had only 36 missed tackles forced from over 300 attempts. I just think it's very underwhelming. I think Jonathan Taylor really, when he gets ahead of steam, can go to work. Don't get me wrong, we saw that in 2021 in his best year. But he's someone that's missed more time than Christian McCaffrey, and I have concerns about McCaffrey's health. Differently to Taylor, but he's missed a lot of time. And I think he's someone that has really just benefited from workload rather than talent. And I'm not saying that Taylor isn't a talented running back. He clearly is, right? He's going to rank ahead of most of the running backs on this list. But I think people put him in the elite bell cow tier. And I don't think he is that at all, really. I think he's in the high-end RB1 tier. And where would I put him in with regards to James Conner and James Cook? I'd probably rather have James Cook than Jonathan Taylor. Is that crazy? Is that crazy? Let me know in the comments. Is it crazy? I don't think it is. Chase Brown, a really fun player. I own him in Dynasty. He saved me from not having to lose again. So He'll always have a soft spot in my heart. He had almost 1,400 combined yards last year as a receiver and as a rusher. He's effective in both the regards as a rushing threat with the ball in his hand and a receiver in the air. He has probably benefited production-wise from being the only guy in that backfield. And they've now drafted Taj Brooks, who I'll talk about when we get to him. Really, though, spoiler alert for Taj Brooks, I don't think either Chase Brown or Taj Brooks are the guy. I think Chase Brown can be a serviceable RB1 at heart. I wouldn't have him over Chuba Hubbard, though, long term. But I think he's a good running back. But realistically, again, I'm surprised the Bengals... Well, maybe I'm relatively surprised the Bengals didn't kind of address running back more aggressively, because Chase Brown isn't going to stop me from doing that, for example. Rico Dowdle, he's going to be a nice RB2 behind Chuba Hubbard. He had 1,000 yards last year on a pretty woeful Cowboys offense overall. I'm quite surprised the Cowboys didn't keep him. He's basically an RB 1.5. He's better than a high-end RB2. I'm going to put him in the serviceable RB1 category, just because Rico Dowdle will kind of technically play the RB2 position. Doesn't mean he goes in that tier, by the way, just so we're clear. Travis Etienne, he has been a good, not great running back, I would say. And that was in 2022 and 2023. And then we hit 2024 last year, and he wasn't good, not great. He was just not good. He wasn't giving the Jags offense what they needed, which, again, is kind of consistency, being able to turn a 4-yard run into a 6-yard run, being able to turn a 10-yard run into a 15-yard run. Those kind of things are what you're looking for from your starting running back, I personally believe. He wasn't being efficient. He wasn't breaking tackles. He wasn't getting extra yards. Tank Bigsby got more snaps. And he's not an RB1, I would say, in any sense. Again, spoiler alert when we get to Tank Bigsby. I'm also surprised the Jags didn't attack the running back position more aggressively. They did draft one, and we'll talk about Brashard Smith when we get to him. But again, I'm not moved by Etienne, and I'm not really moved by the Jags backfield at all. I think he is a serviceable RB1. Is he? No, I don't think he is. I think he's a high-end 2, honestly, is what we saw from him last year. Yeah. And I'd rather have Algier as my 2. Frankly, he'll do what he needs to do. So, yeah, guys, I'm not hot on it. I'm not hot on Travis Etienne. Derrick Henry, the king, right, and for good reason. Palate cleanser after Travis Etienne. He is a true one-of-one physically. Derrick Henry is a callback to almost like a long forgotten era of the kind of the peak of running backs, the kind of old school NFL where you just have a great running back and win the game, right? The kind of the running backs we know of when we're younger and all that malarkey. He is an absolute truck. He's one of one physically. He kind of doesn't look like he belongs in the modern NFL. So we've taken him from like the 80s and we've just plonked him in the 2025 now, really. He is 99th percentile height, 98th percentile weight, and you can see that on the field. He's absolutely massive, and he plays that weight 100%. He fits the Ravens scheme perfectly. I think that is the best marriage of skill set and team values and team scheme out of anyone on this list. It's a shame that Derrick Henry has only just played for the Ravens this year rather than kind of rotting on the Titans. I would have loved Henry in this Ravens offense 4 years ago. Imagine that. It would be unbelievable. Just their use of the fullback with Patrick Ricard, getting Derrick Henry on the field running behind him. That is so much mass. When NFL defenses are getting lighter, they have 2 deep safeties, so there's less players in the box, and the players that are in the box also have to be able to cover have to be able to prevent the pass. It just means that you can run it at people like no other time really for the last few years. And Derrick Henry has been reaping the rewards of that. He is absolutely unbelievable. He had 2,191 rush yards. That was second in the NFL last year. 6 yards per attempt. That led the NFL. 19 touchdowns. Joint first with James Cook. 1,323 yards after contact. Second in the NFL. 89 missed tackles forced. That was first in the NFL. Just so dominant. So dominant. Absolutely elite. Is he getting older? Yes. But it's still there. It's absolutely still there. He's drinking from the fountain of youth, as I said. Long term, I'd rather have Ashton Jeanty. But for 2025, give me Derrick Henry over Ashton Jeanty. We saw Bijan struggle in his rookie season. It is definitely possible Jeanty does. Give me Derrick Henry. Audric Estime, a physical downhill runner, not afraid to do the dirty work. He'll be the kind of physical complement to RJ Harvey. Did fumble twice on only 76 carries. Sean Payton isn't going to like that. He'll be used as that kind of RB. I don't know how they're going to split the carries. I'd imagine that it was going to be like fairly 50-50 with Estime and Harvey. But really, I think Estime is better suited to being a rotational RB3. and I'd have him ahead of Brashard Smith. David Montgomery, he does exactly what it says on the tin. That kind of the hammer to Jahmyr Gibbs' scalpel, if you will. And those two are the combination, and the Montgomery Gibbs combination is the gold standard, I think, in the diversification of skill sets. Neither one by themselves. Well, I think Gibbs is, I'm not going to talk about Gibbs. I don't think Montgomery by himself is as good as Montgomery is with Jahmyr Gibbs, if that makes sense. They make each other more effective in what they do. And him being that hammer role, kind of the one that you want on the goal line, for fantasy guys, he always steals Gibbs' touchdowns. He just fits not only with Gibbs in the backfield, but what the Lions want to do as a team inherently under Dan Campbell, which is that kind of hard-nosed, ground and pound, dog mentality. And he is a bit one-dimensional, don't get me wrong, but I think he's really good at what he does. Is he an elite role player? No, I think he's a high-end RB1. I'll put him there behind James Conner. Would I rather have Dave Montgomery or James Conner? James Conner, man. I think James Conner is super underrated. Carmen guy. He could potentially be, there's another potential here, which I'll talk about when we get to him, but he could potentially be, for the Bears, now with Ben Johnson in Chicago, he could potentially be that Montgomery-esque player. He's not physically like Montgomery, don't get me wrong, if you look up their kind of physical stats, it's not the same. But as a play style, it definitely is much more similar. He is a physical downhill runner. He's never fumbled in 704 carries. He's shifty and balanced with quick feet to get those hard yards running up the middle. Very effective in short yardage. Much like David Montgomery, right? And I think Ben Johnson could potentially really like this guy. If he doesn't like someone else who's already on the roster, who I will talk about when I get to him. And no, it's not DeAndre Swift, and I'll talk about him as well. For now, I'm going to put him as a high-end RB2. I think he's going to be more effective than, well, not more effective, but I think he's going to do more than Justice Hill. Joe Mixon. I thought, as a Texans fan, this guy was going to be washed when he came to us. And he had a very impressive season. I was happily wrong about that. 1,200 rush yards, 839 yards after contact. Definitely upgraded our backfield. Damon Pierce was not a scheme fit schematically for what we wanted to do in that backfield. He is definitely in the twilight of his career now. And I think he is probably a serviceable RB1. And going into 2025, I'd probably rather have Chuba Hubbard. Look, Joe Mixon's been better, but it's not about past wonders. It's about what you're going to do for me now. Sorry, that's what the NFL's about. DJ Giddens, an interesting one after what I said about Jonathan Taylor. He is a jitterbug behind the line of scrimmage. He loves a jump cut, very shifty, does lack the kind of breakaway speed and tries to go east and west more than north and south. But I think realistically, he's going to be a rotational RB3 in the long run. And I think that's probably what he's best suited to, even though I think he could, well, actually, no, I see who I'm going to talk about in just a second. Someone in that Colts backfield, little teaser for a few players' time, could be taking some snaps from Jonathan Taylor. Jakoy Cross-Merritt, let me put you onto something right now. And listen up. He is this year's Bucky Irving. Bold take, I know everyone's talking about this year's Bucky Irving. That's kind of what everyone, it's the hot thing, who's the next Patrick Mahomes? I get it. But Jakoy Cross-Merritt, for my money, is the closest thing to that, I would say. That's who I would be betting on. He is a relatively unknown prospect because due to eligibility issues, he didn't actually play more than one game last year for Arizona, which is a shame because I think they really needed him and what he offered. But I love his potential in this Washington backfield. He is incredibly creative. He just sees the field differently from other running backs. He's able to see holes that don't exist yet and able to anticipate when they will come open. He's incredibly elusive. He's got the shiftiness to create those non-existent gaps himself. He has fantastic feet, can evade tacklers. He can accelerate and decelerate really well. Helps in that kind of tackle breaking ability as well. And he's got a really good top speed to burn defenses, I think. Now he needs to get downhill more, spends a bit too much time kind of jumping around in the backfield, and needs to make himself a smaller target, has a very upright running style. But I can see a path to playing time for him because no one in that Washington backfield is demanding the majority of the snaps. You'll give them obviously to Brian Thomas, not Brian Thomas. You'll give them to Bijan Robinson, but I can see Jakoy Cross-Merritt doing something, basically, if that makes sense. And I can see him being a serviceable RB1 more so than I can from Jaden Blue. So this is an interesting projection, one that you're probably, if I can get in there, one that you're probably not going to see very many places. But Jakoy Cross-Merritt, watch out for that name. Trust me. And if nothing happens, then forget I ever said it. Rachaad White, I mean, he's not the bell cow that he was advertised as or kind of sells himself as. Not as impactful as Bucky Irving on the ground, who I'm going to be very excited to be talking about. But he is a good receiving threat. He had 448 yards and then 507 receiving yards. Did fumble 3 times. I think he's a high-end RB2, realistically. I'm putting behind Travis Etienne. I'm not a huge Rachaad White guy. Isaiah Pacheco, he has the most hilarious running style in the league, right? He runs like he hates the ground, that really high, pumping the knees. It's not fluid or efficient, but look, it works. The scores are there for everyone to see. He has been great as a 7th round player. He's had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons in 2022 and 2023. Was injured in 2024 last year, did have a down year generally. He says he's going to go back to 216 pounds and running a sub 4.4 like he's kind of renowned for. But I think we know what Pacheco is at this point, right? Which is a great relative to his draft position, 7th round. Hell, getting that out of a 4th round player is brilliant. But is he someone that you're going to fall over yourselves to pay? I don't really think so, to be perfectly honest with you. And he doesn't really have any receiving ability, which does open the door for Brashard Smith. I like what Pacheco does, but I don't think he's anything more than a serviceable RB1. And I'd put him behind Jakoy Cross-Merritt, which is harsh. He's done really well. But again, if you're thinking about, right, like, would I pay this guy? I would say with Pacheco, no. So then he's not more than he can't be a high-end RB1 because I would pay all of those guys. I would pay Connor, I would pay Montgomery, I would pay Cook. Would I pay Taylor? Not the money he's got, but yeah, probably. Cam Skattebo. The aura, as the kids say, the older people among us might call it intangibles, coming off this guy is off the charts. He is the definition of greater than the sum of his parts. He is a fighter. He leaves everything on the field. He tries, gives 110% for every single yard on the field. He's seeking contact. He grinds out those hard yards. He's going to fight for every inch. He's going to run through you if he can't run around you, which I'll come on to talk about, but he can't really run around that many people. And he just runs really nasty. He had 157 broken tackles, which led the Power 4 and was second only behind Ashton Jeanty. He is not, though, the whole package, right? He does lack the elite physical traits. He does lack the speed, and he does lack the agility. So like I said, he's not going to really run around you. He's going to try and run through you, which in the NFL counts for a little bit less than it does in college, just given how talented everyone else is, right? You're not playing against future accountants, you're playing against current NFL pros. So it's not quite the same thing for Cam Skattebo, so that's going to count for a little bit less. But he is a really high floor running back, and I think he is going to be even better than people expect. I have very high expectations, but I think a lot of people are expecting Skattebo to just be a kind of a tough runner and will not be much more than that. But I think he's going to show that he can be a high-end RB1, which is where I'm going to put him. And I'm going to put him, I think him and James, I think he comps a lot like a James Conner. No. I'm going to leave Skattebo there. I do love James Conner, but I love Skattebo. The elite role player is a little bit empty at the moment. We'll see if anyone will fill that. Khalil Herbert. I am a big Khalil Herbert guy. Might not know that about me, but I am. I think he is a really creative runner with good vision. He's good in pass pro. He's good as a receiver as well out of the backfield. I think he will have a career year in Indianapolis this year as Jonathan Taylor's backup, which is why I put DJ Giddens as a rotational RB3, because I think that's the role he's best suited to, and I think that's what he will play. I think Khalil Herbert is going to be good this year. I think he could take some snaps from Jonathan Taylor. I think for now, though, I can't in good conscience put him any higher than a high-end RB2, and I would rather have Khalil Herbert than Rachaad White. Najee Harris. He is what he is. He will get you 1,000 yards if you give him the carries. He will fight for the hard yards when you need him to. He is a north and south runner, but he's not particularly dynamic. He doesn't create his own yards for himself. He's more of an old school style of running back, which will fit the Chargers offense really well. Don't get me wrong. He is going to be effective. He will get yards in that offense, but I don't think he's anything more than serviceable, really, which already is becoming a very crowded. Well, no. I think he's better suited to an RB2 role. I will put him, again, behind Tyler Algier. I think Tyler Algier is a really great RB2. So I think Najee Harris is better than Algier, but in the roles that you want them to play, I don't want Harris as my 1. And I would love Algier as my 2. So that's my logic. Alvin Kamara, the best contact balance in the NFL. He was the comp for me for Ashton Jeanty to a degree, just with regards to the contact balance, because his is so damn good. He looks way more powerful than he is. He is better at playing through contact because of that contact balance. It just helps him play bigger, basically. Kamara is not a physically imposing running back like a Derrick Henry, obviously, or a James Conner, for example, or even someone like a Cam Skattebo or a David Montgomery. But he does play so much bigger than his weight because of that elite contact balance, and he's got great vision as well. He has been elite previously as a rushing threat and as a receiving threat for the Saints. And that was since 2017 when he was drafted. He almost had 900 receiving yards as a rookie running back in 2017. He has previously taken games all over by himself. He has, absolutely. But he is turning 30. The Saints offense is a bit underwhelming. I think his best years are behind him now. I would have him over Jonathan Taylor, 100%. I'll keep, for legacy's sake, which isn't what I'm really considering here, but I would rather have Alvin Kamara for one more season than I would Jonathan Taylor. James Cook. No, I'll leave that for now. Josh Jacobs. I underrated Josh Jacobs, honestly. I thought he was a running back who was simply the beneficiary of having a lot of carries in Las Vegas. But he had an amazing year for Green Bay. He had 1,410 rush yards, 4.4 yards per attempt, 1,113 yards after contact, which was 3rd in the NFL. He did have 5 fumbles. He does have a bit of history with those. That's 16 now for his career. But he has really shown that he can be a 3-down bell cow kind of running back. And he's had a crazy amount of touches in his career. He has 1,271 touches, which is tied with Derrick Henry, and those two are only behind Najee Harris in the last 4 years. So he's had a lot of tread on the tires and has done really well with it for what it's worth. And he was 3rd in missed tackles forced last year at 79. So his consistency and reliability, barring fumbles, obviously, raises the floor of an offense. I don't think he's an elite bell cow, but I'm going to put him in the elite role player. I think. The first one, welcome, Josh Jacobs. Quinshon Judkins. I wasn't super high on Judkins coming out, but, this draft that is, but he does have 3 years of top production in the SEC. He is a decisive and physical runner, only 3 fumbles on 700 attempts, quick feet. He does lack the top end speed. He does have questionable home threat ability. But I think in the Browns backfield, which is wide open, by the way, and we'll talk about the other Browns running backs later, I think he's going to win the starting job. And I think someone like Kevin Stefanski is going to give him a scheme which is going to play to his strengths. And he's going to produce. I think he's going to be a serviceable running back for the Browns this year. And I would probably back that more than Jakoy Cross-Merritt, because I think that's a bit more of a long shot. Bijan Robinson, a rocky rookie campaign, relative to expectations, that is. I think we can put a lot of that on Arthur Smith's doorstep. But 2024, that's what we were looking for Bijan, right? He had 1,456 rush yards. That was 5th in the NFL. 431 receiving yards. That was 6th. He was great in this kind of like dump-offs that Kirk Cousins was throwing to him all too often. 4.8 yards per attempt, 920 yards after contact, only 1 fumble. He's explosive, well-rounded, versatile, and he's really patient. He is, not Lev Bell, kind of stationary in the backfield, don't get me wrong, but he's never rushing when he has the ball in his hands behind his offensive line. He's very patient, and I think that trait is quite rare, actually, for a lot of running backs. I think they see the hole and they hit it, and I think Bijan is great at kind of waiting and seeing what really all his options are. He's got great awareness. He's such a great talent. He is a great running back. Is he elite, though? Right now, after 1 season, I don't think he is. I'm going to put him at the top of the elite role player, I would say. I think that's fair. Roshan Johnson. Now, I was hinting at the Bears running backs when I was talking at Carmen Ongai. Why have we not seen more Roshan Johnson? Please tell me, because I think Roshan Johnson is so much better than what he's being allowed to show. He's only had 136 career attempts so far. Zach Charbonnet, a backup running back for the most part, had that this year alone. I know there was injuries which allowed that, but that kind of shows like Roshan Johnson hasn't had an opportunity to show what he can do, and I think he can do a lot more than he's been allowed to show. He's a big-bodied, powerful runner who needs momentum to get going, so he's not, a scatty running back who's going to kind of make people miss in the backfield. But once he gets ahead of steam, he's hard to bring down, and he's really good in pass pro as well, which counts for a lot. So I think that he could be, more so than Carmen the David Montgomery replacement for Ben Johnson in the offense. Yes, they're missing that Jahmyr Gibbs, don't get me wrong. That's definitely not DeAndre Swift, but I just think that this could finally be Roshan Johnson's year, which I've been waiting for the last 2 years. So, and I think Ben Johnson is going to unlock that potential. I think he's going to show he's a serviceable running back one. And I think he could be not better than Joe Mixon. That's not fair. Well, yeah, I'd put him there. It's bold. We've not seen that from Johnson, but I think we will. I think we could. Hopefully, please. Kareem Hunt, surprisingly effective at this point in his career, but we know what this guy is now, though. Come on, let's not lie to ourselves. He's not an RB1 in an ideal world. He's better than Travis Etienne. I'd rather have Khalil Herbert. DeAndre Swift. Me and him have one-way beef. He doesn't know I exist. He doesn't need to know I exist. That's fine. But I've got beef with DeAndre Swift. I just think he is so uncreative, so undynamic. 3.8 yards per attempt just is not good enough for a running back that is, technically speaking, an RB1. I don't think he's as good as his stats suggest. I think he's the poster child for a running back that gets a lot of carries, so gets a lot of yards. I think he is I think even calling him a high-end RB2 is generous. But I think he's better than a rotation RB3. So I'm going to put him there. I think he is at the bottom of a high-end. I think he's just an RB2. I think he's an RB2. And I wouldn't call him a high-end one. But I think he's better than a rotation RB3. Maybe I should have had a tier in between those. Achane, he was elite in his rookie year. 813 rush yards, 241 receiving yards, 7.5 yards per attempt, almost 5 yards after contact per attempt. Absolutely electric. He was probably per carry the best running back in the NFL last year, maybe second only to Christian McCaffrey. Like, on a smaller sample size, he was fantastic. He was really that good. But 2024, as is the story with every other Dolphins offensive player, took a step back. 4.5 yards per attempt. The rest of the Dolphins offense took a step back as well. And by the way, that 7.5 yards per attempt in his rookie season, that is bonkers. 7.5 yards per attempt. Wild. That went down to 4.5, which is a good number still, but I think the real Achane, not quite 7.5 yards per attempt, that's unsustainable over even just a season, let alone more than one season. But when we look at the Dolphins offense, the whole unit took a step back. They were 31st in rush EPA per play. Their offensive line was horrible. The wheels fell off it, really. And, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane were all unfortunately losers in that situation. I think, though, that 2023 is what we can expect from Achane. And this feels... No, it doesn't. I would rather have Achane than Connor. I think he is an elite role player with that speed. I think he has difference-making speed and knows how to use it on a football field, not just some other players on this list that have also run 4.3s. Achane's speed on the field is legit. So I think that would make him an elite role player in my eyes. Braelon Allen, only just turned 21. He's going to be kind of this generation's Tremaine Edmonds, I think, who still 19, by the way. Bad joke. The physical traits for Braelon Allen are elite. 95th percentile in height, 6'1.25", 95th percentile weight, 235 pounds, 92nd in bench press, 26 reps. That plays, even in the NFL. It's not everything, don't get me wrong. It's not, it's not like Wisconsin anymore for Braelon Allen. He is going to have to play against better athletes where that counts for less. But those physical traits do play. That's why they're tested, and that's why it does matter. Does that mean he's going to be good? No. But I think that if he can work it out, if he's given more opportunities, it could. That thing undeniably helps. And I think that there's a bit of uncertainty surrounding Breece Hall. I think Aaron Glenn is going to commit more to a split backfield. And I think Allen could take a big jump in year 2. I think he could be a serviceable RB1. I'd have him over Jaden Blue. I'd have him over Isaiah Pacheco. Yeah, I would. At me, Chiefs fans, at me. Amarian Hampton. This guy has bell cow potential. He is a downhill runner, fluid mover, great elusiveness for his size. He's not going to cut you out of your shoes, but he is good at making people miss with no wasted movement, which is really useful. He is patient but decisive. With his yards after contact, the first person is never enough to bring Amarian Hampton down. And I think that will be the case in the NFL as well. You need more than one defender to bring Hampton down, ideally. He had the second most yards after contact total in college football this year. His top speed is really good. When he's gone, no one's catching him. He had 2 touchdowns versus North Carolina, versus NC State, where he hit 23 miles per hour. He is really good. And I actually don't think that the Chargers backfield is going to be as split as people think it's going to be with Najee Harris. I think Hampton is going to take the majority of those carries and do a lot with it. And I think in a run-heavy offensive system with really good offensive linemen, led obviously by Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater at both tackle positions, I think Amarian Hampton is going to be a high-end RB1 immediately. Breece Hall. The highs are so high with Breece Hall, man. In 2023, he was great on the ground as a receiver as well. He had more yards after the catch last year. Not last year, but in 2023, sorry. He had more yards after the catch, 642 yards after the catch, than he had total receiving yards, which is 591, because he would get the ball behind the line of scrimmage. Obviously, it only starts counting as receiving yards once you cross the line of scrimmage, and he was just able to make stuff happen out of nothing. Those checkdowns that he was getting, he was turning them into something, and he was really kind of one, obviously him and Garrett Wilson were the two kind of hopes on that Jets offense when Zach Wilson was there when Aaron Rodgers was injured. He has the contract year looming. He has the potential to be, I think, an elite running back, but he hasn't really put it all together. He's got that contract looming. The Jets are going through a rebuild. Justin Fields is there, so his rushing threat might help kind of unlock things for Breece Hall, but then his passing might retract a big part of his game with that passing ability, with that pass catching ability. He had the second most fumbles in the NFL last year at 6. I think Braelon Allen is going to eat into his carries. I still believe in Breece Hall. And I would rather have Breece Hall than Jonathan Taylor. But I can't put him any higher than that, even ahead of someone like Alvin Kamara. I can't. I need to see more. And I think we could and we will, but I need to see it before I put him any higher. Rhamondre Stevenson, he is rocked up, man. This guy is 231 pounds, and he's been fine as an RB1 for a pretty bad New England offense, if we're being honest with ourselves, the last few years. But I do think he's the perfect complement to Travion Henderson, who I'll talk about when I get to him. He needs that heavier, more kind of downhill running back to do the dirty work, pick up those hard yards, the short yardage situations, maybe on goal line as well. So I think Stevenson is going to be a fine RB2. I'll put him... Yeah, I think that's a fair spot from Rhamondre Stevenson. I'm really not a Kareem Hunt guy, guys. Kareem Hunt belonged pre-COVID, if we're being honest with ourselves. That breakout week 1 opener. That was the old school Kareem Hunt. Jerome Ford, very efficient, 5.4 yards per attempt, 4th in the NFL. He's very productive on limited snaps, and he has been good for the Browns, but he's probably a rotational guy, if we're being honest. A high-end one at that. I think he'll be better than Estime, but realistically, as good as Ford is in what he does, I don't even think he's a high-end RB2. I think he's someone that you'd like as your third guy. Trey Benson, very, very underwhelming rookie season from him. Only 63 attempts, 291 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 fumble. That is dreadful. Let's call a spade a spade. I drafted this guy in my redraft. That's why I lost, partially because I spent loads of draft capital on young players that were terrible. And Trey Benson was one of them. So a bit of bias here. I have to do a forfeit because of him, essentially. He just didn't do anything. And I don't really see him doing much more this year, honestly, for what it's worth. The Cardinals extended James Conner. They obviously see him as the more long-term option than Trey Benson. And Benson didn't threaten Connor's workload in any meaningful way. Didn't take significant snaps, didn't threaten to. The most we saw from him was in week 2, when he had 15 carries and was averaging less than 1 yard per attempt on those 15 carries. You can't do that. You can't do that. And since then, his usage just went down off a cliff. That was his moment, and he fumbled it. He fumbled the bag. He fumbled the bag. Running back is not a position where you need to get used to things like quarterback. As I said, running back is, generally speaking, a smooth transition to the NFL. Yes, Bijan Robinson had a bit of a tumultuous rookie season, but the talent was there. Benson is not the same caliber of prospect, and we saw less from him than we did from Bijan. So at the moment, I'm willing to let the draft evaluation kind of carry him into this, but Trey Benson, man, I'll put him ahead of Carmen on guy because I think he's better as a player, but I'm not hopeful. Aaron Jones, rock solid running back. I think he's very similar to Joe Mixon here. He's been really good, really reliable throughout his career. He's going to give you a decent floor. Not going to give you much more than that. I'd rather have Mixon than Jones, but I think that's a fair place to put him. He's a serviceable running back. Taj Brooks, he's going to be the thumper to Chase Brown's kind of panickety, Skattebo, jitterbug kind of play style. He is, I think, if you squint and stand really far away and maybe wear a few sunglasses, Taj Brooks and Chase Brown are an incredibly poor man's Monty and Gibbs. I feel disgusting saying that because even mentioning those two in the same breath as someone like Taj Brooks and Chase Brown, it feels like sacrilege. But I'm just trying to get at kind of the fact that I think they're going to complement each other nicely. I think their play styles are quite opposite, and I think they're going to be used in different ways to complement each other's skill sets. I think Chase Brown might see his production decline, but I think he might play better. So I think Taj Brooks will be a high end too. I'll put him there. I'm a Khalil Herbert guy. Javonte Williams. What could have been with Javonte Williams, man? Take me back to UNC Javonte Williams. He was a different gravy. I loved him coming out of UNC. He was absolutely electric. I had such high hopes for him. He was looking really good in his rookie season. And then he got injured, and it really just derailed his career. It's really unfortunate, but it happens, and he's not been the same player since, if we're being honest with ourselves. I think he's a fine RB2, but he should have been so much more than that. He was the promised one. He was the chosen one. Is he even a high-end RB2? He's better than DeAndre Swift. Come on now. And he's better than Trey Benson. But he's not that good, unfortunately. Tyrone Tracy, fun season with low expectations last year. I said he would do well. I said he would win that starting job. Preseason videos, keep your eyes peeled for them. Again, subscribe if you haven't already for those preseason predictions, because I said that Sam Darnold would have a career resurgence, and I said that Tyrone Tracy was going to win the starting job. I said a lot of other things. Can't remember them, probably because they weren't right. But anyway, subscribe for that kind of predictions. And I said he would do well in the starting job, but I don't think he's that great. I don't think he's that great. If looking at things for what they are, he needs to work on ball security. I think Skattebo is going to take that starting role and not really look back. That high-end RB2 is very... I'm putting Swift down. I don't care. I'm putting DeAndre Swift. He's a rotational RB3. I don't care. At me. We'll put him... Him and Justice Hill are kind of fairly similar in what they offer as kind of receiving threat running backs. Jalen Wright. Another speed demon on the offense, on the Dolphins offense, runs a 4.38. Shock. Drafted a guy that runs a sub 4.4. But I think the Dolphins are moving away from speed. And it's a shame, actually, that I didn't put Ollie Gordon on this list. Because I actually think that Ollie Gordon is going to be that rotational RB3 for the Dolphins. I think that they've seen how far speed can take them. And I think they're moving away from that. Which is why they've got... is it Nick Westbrook-Akina? Yeah, they got Nick Westbrook-Akina from the Titans. Someone like their tight end, Johnny Smith, really burst onto the scene later in his career by being that bigger bodied threat. Speed, I think, is great, but you need, again, to diverse your skill sets. And I think Jalen Wright is going to become victim of, essentially, Achane's going to be the speed guy, and then they're going to rely on Alexander Mattison and Ollie Gordon to be those kind of heavier running backs in the short yardage situation, on the goal line, in the red zone, where the Dolphins were terrible last year. So really, despite the speed, I think he's a rotational RB3. Jahmyr Gibbs. I created the elite role player category specifically with Gibbs in mind because he's not a bell cow. And I think it's not fair to put him in there with the likes of Henry, Jeanty, McCaffrey, maybe one or two more. But who cares? He is so dynamic. He is so good when he does have the ball that he is still elite, which is why I have the word in both, elite in both of those categories. He had 1,500 rush yards last year. That was third in the NFL. 5.7 yards per attempt, second in the NFL. He had 587 rush yards, second in the NFL. 10.1 yards per reception. Wild. You throw it to Gibbs, it is a first down. He is so strong after contact for a smaller running back because he is so dynamic. You can never get a full hit on Jahmyr Gibbs because he's so good at avoiding those kind of hits. He's almost untouchable in not the literal sense of the word, but the metaphorical one. Like, you really struggle to bring that guy down, not because he's big, but because you just can't really get a hold of him properly. And he had the third most breakaway runs. That's runs of 15 plus yards in the NFL last year at 27. He is an elite role player. Would I have him, though? This is the question. Would I have him over Bijan Robinson? Honestly, yeah, I would. Honestly, yeah, I would. I would. I don't care. I would. I know Bijan Robinson does more and plays more, but Gibbs is better when he does have the ball, I think. And I don't think that's crazy to say. And Lions fans, I know have not seen eye to eye. Right? I called Jahmyr Gibbs a reach. I gave that draft class an F. I was wrong. Okay? I still think 12 for a running back is a bit rich, but Jahmyr Gibbs is damn good. He's damn good. So I'm giving you this one. RJ Harvey. Talking about a reach, a huge reach. I don't care, Broncos fans. Sorry. I don't care what you think. I had him as a 5th round player, and he was drafted as the 5th running back off the board in the 2nd round in an incredibly strong running back class. If you want speed, go and draft Jaden Blue in the 4th. What are we doing here? I think it was a bad pick. I know he's an explosive play threat. I know he's got a lot of track speed. Did only run a 4.4, but I think he's probably faster than that with pads on. But I think he's got bad play strength. He doesn't work through contact. He doesn't get the hard yards. He's only effective in space. He doesn't have great vision. And he's a terrible pass blocker. I don't see RJ Harvey making the impact that Broncos fans think he's going to make. Sure, he's a 2nd round pick. He's going to see usage because of it. But I don't see it. I don't see it. He's going to be a compliment to Estime, but I think that's the worst backfield in the running in the NFL right now. RJ Harvey and Audric Estime, and I'm going to put him as a rotational RB3. I think that is his better job. Like, he's like a Jalen Wright. He's got speed. And I would rather have Jalen Wright. So, look, Broncos fans, if you think I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. But I'm right. Austin Eckler. He has been a very good player. For what it's worth, he's been a very good player. And he was better for Washington than I was expecting him to be. But he's 30. We know what he is. I think there are 3 running backs in that backfield: Jakoy Cross-Merritt, Bijan Robinson, and Austin Eckler. And I think he's the rotational guy at this point. He is. Great career, done really well, 2025. I think he's probably a high-end RB2. That seems mean. Austin Eckler, that seems mean. I'd rather have him than Tyrone Tracy and Justice Hill. That seems fair. Travion Henderson. I love Travion Henderson. I have really high expectations for him this year in that Patriots offense with Drake May. I think he's going to pair so nicely with that team. He is deadly quick. Ran a 4.43, but I think he's quicker than that with pads on. He's incredibly explosive. He's a threat to score anywhere on the field. We saw that throughout the season last year against Texas, against Tennessee, against Oregon. All of those were in the playoffs. He is a big play threat as a receiver and as a rusher. He is the true modern running back, a bit like Jahmyr Gibbs, who, yes, I comped him to. Let it be known I was there before many other people were, by the way. I didn't jump on that bandwagon. I don't think he's as good as Gibbs, but I think the way that he plays the game is very Gibbs-esque. And, God, I'm going to put him in that elite role play. I am. I'm going to do it. I'm going to put him behind Devon Achane, but I'm going to put Travion Henderson in that elite role player category because I think that's what he's going to be. And you can write that down, clip it, chat. There's no chat. This is not a live stream, but chat, clip it. Come back to me in 2 years because Travion Henderson is a damn good player. Zach Charbonnet. He showed that he's the definition of a high-end two, realistically, this year. Yes, Kenneth Walker was injured. Zach Charbonnet was able to put up 134 yards against Arizona. He's good after contact. He's shifty. He's explosive. I think he is a really good high-end. I think he's a high-end too. I think him and Algier are the poster childs for that. Isaac Guerrero. Saw flashes of him last year. 99 yards against Seattle. 85 yards versus the Cowboys. How will they work him in with a healthy Christian McCaffrey? I'm not sure. He has 4.33 speed, which you've got to think someone like a Kyle Shanahan is going to whip out at some point. But it's only potential at this point, and I think realistically he has to go in this category. Another speedster, we'll put them with the other two speedsters. Bijan Robinson, rock solid running back. 800 yards, 700 yards, 900 yards last 3 years. He gets the job done. He's not overly dynamic. He's not that exciting. I think Merritt is going to help in that regard. But I think he has a high floor as a rusher. I think he is a serviceable RB1. And I'll put him next to Jakoy Cross-Merritt. So those two are next to each other. Damien Martinez. How this guy fell to the 7th round, I will genuinely never know. I think he's so good after contact. He's amazing in short yardage situations. He's an old school between the tackles runner. I think he could take Zach Charbonnet's job, despite him being a high end too. And I'm going to put him in that same category next to Zach Charbonnet for that exact reason. Jaylen Warren, fine. He doesn't particularly move me, though. He's a rotational guy. Yeah, he's better than DeAndre Swift, though. Tank Bigsby, again, I think he showed that he could step up when Etienne took a step back. He was excellent after contact, 3.78 yards after contact per attempt. That was 3rd in the NFL last year. I think he's got nice agility behind the line of scrimmage. He picks a hole and he hits it hard. Not sure about a ceiling, but I think he is also a high-end number 2. I think he's better than Etienne as well, so I'll put him ahead of Etienne. I think he's better than Najee Harris as well. Dameon Pierce, I think is still really good. Well, not really good. I think he's still good. We saw that in his rookie season. He then kind of fell out of love with how the scheme was changing in Houston. I think he's still good. I think we'll put him at the top of rotational. I think that's realistic for him now. I'd like to see him on another team. Honestly, I'm surprised he wasn't traded away. Unless, of course, with our new OC, we're going to use him more, which I'd be down to see. Kenneth Walker. I love Kenneth Walker. He is so damn good. 61 missed tackles forced in 2024. That was 9th. But he only had 153 total attempts. To put that into context for you, Bucky Irving had 1 more missed tackle, an incredibly elusive running back, had only 1 more missed tackle forced while having 71 more attempts. Derrick Henry had 89 missed tackles forced from 367. So double. If we double Walker's, which is a crazy extrapolation, but that'd be 120. I do think that Walker could have had easily low 90s, high 90s, verging on 100 if he'd stayed healthy, which is absolutely crazy. His elusiveness is arguably, as a pure skill, the best in the NFL, I would say. The front flip that he had against Alex Anzalone and the Lions when he was kind of brought to the ground and then flipped over him, one of the most crazy things I've ever seen. I think he is an elite role player. I'd rather have him than Devon Achane. I'd rather have him than Josh Jacobs. I would. Don't care who knows it. Seahawks fans, back me up. Caleb Johnson. He's a perfect fit for Arthur Smith's outside zone heavy offense. He glides over the field, an amazingly smooth mover. He is, a bit of a taller frame, but moves really well for it. A one-cut runner, again, is going to fit that system brilliantly. He has the stature of a bell cow. He's got great vision, great anticipation, good at forcing missed tackles. I think he's going to be really good. I think he's going to be a high-end one. I think he is this year. I think he is. Yeah. Looking at the other guys, that makes sense to me. Brashard Smith, again, I thought the Jags were going to hit the backfield harder than that. Brashard Smith is a speedster, but I think he's a purely rotational guy. Again, look, we've got a running theme here of, where are they? Garendo, Wright, Harvey, and now Tootin. Guys that, they're quick, but you need more than just quicks in the NFL, even if you are running a 4-3. Kyren Williams, he takes what the offense gives him brilliantly, right? He's very productive. 1,200 rush yards, then 1,400 rush yards. Surprisingly good after contact as well. 900 yards after contact last year. But I'm not sure how much he does out of the structure of the offense. I think he very much is, more so than others on this list, but they all are, don't get me wrong, but more so than the others. I think he is a beneficiary of the system to a degree. And I think we have to factor that in when we're looking at this evaluation of who we'd have on our teams. He only had 9 breakaway runs last year. That's 15 yards or more. That's less than DeAndre Swift. And I think he's incredibly undynamic. So I think he's better than Jonathan Taylor, but I don't think he's... Yeah, I think I'll put him ahead of Caleb Johnson, because I think if we got what Kyren Williams did from Caleb Johnson, it'd be an amazing season. I think that's fair. I think that's fair for Kyren Williams. People might think that's too low, but it's not just about production. It's about skill set. Then we've got Dylan Sampson. Again, that backfield is quite open. I think he might be a high-end 2 when it's all said and done for the Browns. Then we've got Miles Sanders again. Well, he'll be the guy, right? He will be the starter ahead of Jaden or Javonte Williams as well. Interesting. I think he's going to be better than Javonte. I think he'll probably play more than Jaden Blue. And I think he's better than Pacheco. I think he's better than Braelon Allen. I think that's fair for him there. A very mid running back room so far for the Cowboys, unless Jaden Blue emerges as what I think he could emerge. Tony Pollard, I think, has been pretty good for the Titans as well. I think he's a definition of a serviceable RB1. And I think that's a fair spot for him there as well. Blake Corum, where is he? Free my guy, Blake Corum. Realistically, I'll have to put him here because I still believe in his skill set. Wasn't able to show it much, but I still believe in it. And then last two. Wanted to rush through those guys so we can get to these two in good time. Saquon Barkley. Finally, right? Who doesn't love Saquon Barkley? Who doesn't love Saquon Barkley? He had an unbelievable season, and it is thoroughly, thoroughly deserved. 2,500 rush yards, first in the NFL. 5.7 yards per attempt, second. 18 touchdowns, third. 1,446 yards after contact, first. 83 missed tackles forced, second. 55 runs of 10 plus yards or 10 yards or more, first. 32 runs of 15 yards or more, first. He was elite on every single level. He changed the Eagles' offense, an offense which, by the way, already has the likes of Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, has A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, has Jalen Hurts. Saquon Barkley, out of all of those guys, was the best player on that team last year. And I think it really wasn't even close, despite how good a lot of those guys are. And don't get me wrong, they are damn good. He was taking over games single-handedly. I saw him do it in person against the Giants at MetLife. He was benched because he got so many yards. Like, just doesn't really happen in the NFL like that. He is elite. I would say he is the best running back in the league currently. Yes, he's had some injuries, and I hope those are behind him. But he has to be the best. I think you have to put him there. You have to put him there. I think you have to have Barkley and Henry as 1A, 1B. I think you have to at this point. And last but definitely not least, Bucky Irving, 5'9", 192 pounds. That is 20th percentile and 5th percentile, respectively. One of the better running backs in the league. He is. He had the most yards after contact per attempt in the NFL at 3.93 yards after contact per attempt. He was 8th in missed tackles forced at 62. He's just so shifty. That run against the Saints in Week 18, where he basically made the whole defense miss, was bumping it outside. Everyone had like 2 chances to tackle him. He just teleports a gap over in the blink of an eye. He's creative on breakaway runs. I think he is really damn good. I think Bucky Irving is really damn good. And it's either the top of high-end RB1. I think the physical traits means that the lack of means that I can't put him any higher than that. But, I mean, looking at it, right, my top 10, before we end, my top 10 running backs then, for 2025, not beyond, just for 2025. Saquon Barkley 1, Derrick Henry 2, Ashton Jeanty 3, Christian McCaffrey 4, Jahmyr Gibbs 5, Bijan Robinson 6, Kenneth Walker 7, Josh Jacobs 8, Devon Achane 9, Travion Henderson 10. I'm looking at that list and I feel good about it. I do feel good about it. James Cook, Bills fans might think he's too low, and I could see that. I could see him maybe being kind of behind Amarian and Hampton, but I don't think he'd be any higher than that for me, and I'm happy having him behind Cam Skattebo. Am I? No, let's move James Cook. Let's move James Cook. I think that is more fair for James Cook. I think he's probably better than James Conner as well. For what I know, I've been pounding the table for otherwise, but I'm just looking at it now in its entirety, and I think I'm good with that. Jonathan Taylor, he's going to be low. Let me know if he's too low. And indeed, with any of these rankings, where I've put any of your guys, are they too high? Are they too low? Do you agree? Have I cooked? Or have I not? Let me know in the comments. Again, make sure you subscribe for more NFL offseason content. More videos coming every single week. Make sure you subscribe to not miss out on any of those. But I've been your host, Dom Corbs. This has been Corbs NFL. I'll see you in the next video.